on a big 89 WLS. Tax day coming up. I think we actually falls on the 15th this year, right? First time in a while?
Yes.
Right, because it's on a weekend.
Right. So Scott Wheaton has agreed to join us again. Well, I shouldn't say agreed. Jane insisted he join us. He is the reluctant accountant.
No choice.
Scott Wheaton and Associates is the business. I don't know if he has room for you, but I believe the last time he was on, he said, I don't know.
I'm busy.
Call me. We'll see.
But he's got good advice.
He's got great advice. We love Scott, even though he doesn't like us. Hi, Scott.
Good morning, guys. I love you. Come on.
Nice to have you back. What's the number one question you're being asked right now? Because I bet it came in from a texter this morning.
Well, probably the biggest one most people ask is, do I have to file? That's always the biggest one. You get a lot of that.
That is on the list from the listeners here, but I don't entirely understand the question. Is it come from seniors or people who are making that much money? I mean, who doesn't have to file?
Isn't the answer always, yes, you have to file, no matter who you are?
The answer is yes, you should look into it. But no, a lot of times you don't have to file. The IRS gave us these new standard deduction amounts that are increased. And because of that, more people don't have to actually file. For federal, the problem is Illinois has different laws and limits, and you might have to file an Illinois tax return even though you don't have to file a federal tax return. So you can make almost $25,000 with Social Security and not have to file a tax return. So there are quite a few people out there that are affected by that.
So it is a fair question to ask.
Yeah, which is why that's the number one text.
It is, right. We wish we all could say we don't have to file. That would be great, but that's not the case, unfortunately.
All right, and speaking of filing, everybody wants to work at home. I don't need to go to work. I'm not going to work. I'll work from home. I'm not taking my pajamas off, but I'm doing just as much as I would in the office. Sure you are. You want to work at home. The IRS says you got to meet standards. What are the standards?
So actually, from working from home, they have taken away the home office deduction for employees. If you're a W-2 employee, you can no longer claim any of those type of deductions.
That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're not getting to claim that home office that you use, and the rules typically are you have to use it exclusively for business. So when you really get down to it, it's difficult to hit that standard. But if you do, if you're a 1099, I can't call it an employee, but if you're somebody who gets a 1099 from somebody instead of a W-2, then you can look at that, and that may be a possible deduction for you.
My company is an LLC, and as an LLC, I'm a vendor of this company, Cumulus, and I'm paid that way. So my office is not here, literally or figuratively. That's the kind of stuff you're talking about, right?
That's correct, exactly. So you're basically in business for yourself, even though you have one customer or one client.
Yeah, management has said that about me for years. Well, I guess you think you're in business for yourself.
And you can't take the whole house. You just take the room that you work in.
You take a percentage, right. If you have a 10 by 10 room, that's 100 square feet. And if your house is 1,000 square feet, you can deduct that 10% of your utilities, taxes, insurance, and then everything that you use for that office, a desk, computer, et cetera, that would all be deductible as well.
I'm going to get Jane in here, but the child tax credit, we see a lot of news about this. What's the status?
You still get it. The child tax credit is $2,000. You do get to claim that. If your limit, there's income limits on that as well. A lot of my clients have a little bit more money, and a lot of those times that gets phased out, so you don't always get it, but yes, it's $2,000 per child.
15 days till taxes are due. A lot of people going, scrambling to get them done, trying to figure it out. Okay, let's just file an extension. I talked to so many people over the weekend that say, I'm lucky if I get my taxes done by October. And I go, what do you mean October? And they said, I file an extension every single year. How many extensions is too many extensions? At some point, should you just try to get them in on time?
Yes, you should try to get it on time. I hate to even answer that question, but you could file an extension every year for the rest of your life, and it's okay. It's not wrong. It's allowed. The problem with extensions is Us accountants hate them, number one. But number two is you have to pay in what you owe when you extend. You don't get to extend the timeline for paying. You only get to extend the timeline for filing. So if you're going to owe, you still have to go through a computation and figure out where you're going to be to make that extension. So you can file that extension by April 15th and say, yes, I want till October 15th to finish, but you still have to pay in if you're going to owe.
Listener text question. Parents had a trust, sold the house, settled the estate back in 2021. Now that the trust is closed, do I still have to file a return for the trust?
Only if the trust had income. So if the house was sold in 2021, then no, you wouldn't have to file another tax return for that. But there is a form called a 1041. It's a fiduciary income tax return that's used for trust and estate. So after somebody dies and the family sells the house, they're required to report that on a 1041. It may not be taxable because you get what's called a step up in basis. So typically what we'll see is that it's not a taxable event, but you still have to file because you got that big 1099 for the sale of that house.
Another listener, own a small business, and it's a busy time of year. Do I need to take the time to figure expenses out since standard deduction seems to always be the way my accountant goes?
The standard deduction is great because what the IRS did is they raised that limit so that most people qualify for that. And by doing that, the IRS takes away all the game playing that was out there because all the cheating went on the Schedule A. So by doing that, you get that higher standard deduction, which means, you can take that. You don't have to figure all the work. The IRS can almost do the tax return for you because everything's reported. But if you have a lot of medical expenses, or if you have a lot in charitable contributions, then you may still itemize because if those amounts are more than your standard deduction, it's still going to be better to itemize. So you do have to look at it year to year.
You got to do the math. The idea of filing a tax return for free became a big deal and a marketing ploy for some of these tax services as well, and even the IRS will do it in certain circumstances. Any easy way to explain who gets that?
Not necessarily. There are groups. There's a lot of senior groups that will prepare. I know our local library will do that. The super simple returns, people will do that. The IRS does have a couple of programs where you can do that, but I find a lot of people struggle with the internet, especially older clients that may be on the cusp of doing that. But we'll typically look at it for somebody and say, hey, look, you don't have to file here. Go to the library or go to some of these organizations or something like that where they will do it for free for you.
Let's get a couple more in here, Jane.
Health care. Let's talk about that. If you have a health plan, health insurance from the marketplace, you get to take that because you're paying for it on your own. Does Medicare and Medicaid fall into that, or is that completely different?
That would all make sense, but the IRS never makes sense. So no, that doesn't work. You can't deduct your medical expenses. Again, on that Schedule A, yes. So if you're more than that standard deduction, you would get to claim. All those type of insurances are medical expenses that you could claim. But again, because most people, a married couple gets a $27,700 standard deduction. So your medical expenses first has to exceed 7.5% of your income, and then you get that big number. So it's very hard to get the true deduction for that, but it is technically available, yes.
The margin, I believe the IRS is trying to make heads explode with the marginal and effective tax rates. That's something that only you can explain, and nobody but a CPA should be able to explain that.
True. So marginal tax rate is what your next dollar earned, what you're going to pay tax on. So you're in the 20% tax bracket, and then you're going to earn some more. It's going to bump you into the 22% tax bracket. Well, only the extra money earned is going to be taxed at that next tax rate.
Okay. Your
effective tax rate is if you take all your income and divide it by the tax you paid. This is how much I paid in taxes.
I'm just so glad they simplified it.
I don't know if I simplified it, right?
As long as you know what it's about.
Right, 100%. Right. You mentioned you hate extensions, but an extension of what you brought up before, which is older folks don't like to deal with the digital age unless they have a 7-year-old around that can help them, which is totally understandable. But does the IRS hate paper filings now?
They do. You know what? It's really evolved to the point where paper filings are difficult for the IRS because they have to process the paper, and they're terrible at processing paper. So I really recommend e-filing any chance you can. Plus, we have the post office issue. So you file, you send your tax return in the mail. You have to hope it gets there. And then if it does get there, it takes them time to get processed. So you're left in limbo for a lot longer if you paper file. I just don't like it at all anymore.
Last question. What is the longest you or one of your staff members have been on hold with the IRS?
Oh, I have a great story for that. Just last week, so it's fresh. Over 3 hours, and then got hung up on by the IRS after the third time of trying to do that. And I got connected a couple of times to the wrong person or the wrong department that didn't want to deal with it. And then, even though I was calling the number on the IRS notice that they sent me, so they're in disarray. It's very frustrating. What I will suggest, what's good with the IRS is there's an ID.me account that you can create for yourself. It's a very secure method of creating an account with the IRS, and then you can check a lot of your tax status through that portal. That's a great tool. That I will say and it works for Social Security as well.
ID.me.
ID.me. Yes, that's. It's a little difficult to do. You have to take a picture of your face with your phone while you're doing it. All kinds of weird stuff. But once you have it set up, it's golden. It really is. I'm recommending it for everybody.
And to leave you with a political note on your taxes, all this screaming about the IRS is coming to take your money, coming to take your money, coming to take your money. Is there audit triggers that are different than the old days? What happens, or is it just random?
No, it's random. I haven't seen an audit in quite a while. A lot of that is just talk. They have to train. They have to find those people, which how do they have the magic of finding people?
They can't even answer their phone.
Right. They can't even answer the phone. So I'm not worried about that. I don't think that's happening.
And support funding the IRS. Don't support defunding them.
Yeah.
Because they need more people. Believe me. Scott, thank you.
Thanks, Scott Wheaton.
Hey, you want to give it? I hate to ask. You want to give your number out?
I'll give my number out. We'll try to help you if we can. It's 708-895-2200. We're not a huge firm. We're 14, 15 people trying to help people out, but we're happy to help you if we can.
708-895-2200?
Yes.
You're a good man, Scott. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. Thanks, guys. All right. Have a great day.
I filed, all I do is send a piece of legal notebook paper, and I said, see Scott Wheaton for my return.
I thought you were going to say you fold it up into the paper airplane and then you throw it in the direction
of Washington.
Uh-huh.
As the crow flies.